Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to the last explanation of the poem The Road Not Taken. The poem, which is written by Robert Frost, shows us the possibilities of life as well as the dilemma, the situational dilemma of a young narrator. Actually, the perspective which is shown by Robert Frost in the poem is quite similar to everyone's life. We always face dilemma in choosing between two paths. So this poem is not for a particular class. It's not for a class ninth, but this particular poem will let you go throughout your life. You will realize the necessity of the poem. So now with the thought, let's continue our analysis of the third and the fourth stanza. So as you all know, the poet is standing in front of a divergence, and he could not realize, he could not make a judgment of which way shall he go. So now again in the third stanza, we are still trying to recollect the memories of the morning, and the poet begins the third stanza, and both that morning equally lay in leaves no step had trodden black. Here, the term trodden black refers to the leaves on the ground. As we know that the speaker now uses the figure of speech of imagery and goes back in the flashback. When he came in the morning, he found that both the roads were looking similar and both the roads were covered with autumnal leaves. In the first stanza only, the poet described the place which was covered with yellow wood. That shows the autumnal leaves, that shows the age old thoughts of people. And from the first stanza only, the road itself, the situations that come, everything that are used by the poet gives us a kind of imagination, symbolizes something. It symbolizes the different choices and situations that we face in our life. Let's continue with the poem. Oh, I kept the first for another day, yet knowing how way leads on to way. Look at here. Look at the word way leads on to way. How one way leads to another. So he is aware that he cannot travel on both the roads. Hence, he is trying to make himself understand that one way will lead to another way. As he also know that he cannot travel both the ways, so he's trying to clarify his understanding. He wants to clarify the idea. I'm again repeating that the poem is about our life from the perspective of a young narrator who is standing at the divergence of wood. So let's find out the other parts of the first stanza. I doubted if I should ever come back. Now look at here. He, in the third line and in the fourth line, the poet saved the first road for another day. Oh, I kept the first for another day. It means that he is trying to speak that he will come back once again. But as we all know, sometimes leading on one way once will block the path of taking another way in future. Similarly, to the choices of our life, if we choose one road or if we take one decision, we never get a chance to come back. So, in the last line of the third stanza, he doubted if he should ever come back. So, the misunderstanding The reality of life, the choice, the dilemma still continues. He is affirming that he's enough doubtful of returning and walking on the first road. Let's see the literary devices used here. So, in the third stanza, the particular literary device that we have is the imagery. Now, what is an imagery? An imagery is used to make the readers feel things through their senses. And both that morning equally lay in leaves, no step had trodden black. So, this particular line shows the figure of speech imagery where he tries to go back to the flashback. In the mind of the reader thinks that to return to the same place once again, to the same morning. Now, let's have a look at the substance. So, as I said, the speaker now uses the figure of speech imagery and goes back in the flashback. When he came in the morning, he found that both the roads were looking same, both the roads were covered with autumnal leaves. Both had leaves on them, and no one has stepped as they were still green in color and had not been blackened in the process. Trodden black had not been blackened means no one has put his or her footsteps on there. In the third line, the poet saves the first road for another day. That line is, "Oh, I gave the first for another day." Sometimes leading on one way once will block the path of taking another way in future. Similar to the choices of our life. If we choose one road, we never get a chance to come back. He also affirms that he is enough doubtful of returning and walking on the first road. The line is, "I doubted if I should ever come back." So now, let's move on to the next stanza. I shall be telling this with a sigh. Somewhere, ages and ages hence, two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less travelled by, and that has made all the difference. So now, the poet is trying to tell with a sigh. So he wants the readers to realize that now, as he is not in front of the wood, many age, many years have always already passed by. Look at the use of the word hence in here. He stood in front of the two roads which diverged in a wood, which got separated in a wood. And his decision, the decision is, I took the one less traveled by. So the road which he had chosen was the one which no one, or rather few people only, had traveled. That decision had made all the differences in his life. So he looks ahead to the time and he talks about the moment when he would look back and tell that the choice he made, whether wise or unwise, was the only point when his life's journey began. Or maybe few different things happened with them. So, the substance of fourth stanza is that finally he comes to a conclusion that for good or ill, the choice he has made will be permanent and highly effective in his life. He looks ahead to the time when he would look back and tell that the choice he made, whether wise or unwise, was the point when his life's journey began. So, again, let me repeat the central theme of the poem, where the poet stands in front of a fork or in front of a divergence, And the road itself symbolizes the different choices and situations we face in our life. So, we realized that the poet, the path that we don't choose in our life, is the road not taken. He describes his feelings about the choice that he had left in the past. The path which we choose decides our future, our destination. So the poet deliberately tells that we must be wise while making choices in our life. Thank you. I really hope that you have understood. So it's better to revise the poem, learn the poem, understand, and tell me your feedback and queries in the comment section there. Bye bye.